Our lives are a string of insights, flashes of inspiration that can be the catalyst for new ideas. However, our pace of life these days means we tend to miss some of them completely. I'm Dave Hill, and I'm the host of the Simple Reflections podcast, a fortnightly series of interviews with people from all walks of life. Our conversations are an invitation to reflect on some of the simple insights my guests have had that have gone on to have a profound impact on their lives. So grab a cuppa and a biscuit, join us, slow down for a little while and see what shows up for you. Well, welcome to the next episode of the Simple Reflections podcast. Today I'm joined by Nici Butchart. Nici is the Managing Director of Innate Health Research and a good friend of mine. I've known Nici since 2017 when we did the One Thought Foundations program together. And whenever I go down to London, I try and meet up with her and have a coffee and just shoot some ideas around and have a bit of fun. And I thought that would be a really good excuse to bring her on and introduce her to all of you. Anyway, Nici, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dave. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you. It's lovely to have you on a nice sunny day for once.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there's anything going on in your world at the moment, given that you're working across a number of different projects that's got you excited at the moment, that's got you sort of, looking at fresh ideas and being playful with it.
Yeah. So I'm about 2 years into working with Innate Health Research, which itself has been through a big transformation in that time. And it's I'm finding it we're looking at how can we build an evidence base. How can we build research and an understanding of the impact of the principles in people's lives, the impact of what we call innate health, because we're trying to make it accessible to people who don't know about the principles as well. And I'm new to research, although I then look back and go, oh my gosh, in every job I've ever had, I've either actually done research or I've drawn on research. So actually it's kind of always been a part of it. And we're basically really innovating. And I think everyone on the team almost is a bit of an innovator in our own respective ways. We all like coming up with ideas and challenging things and changing things and stuff like that. So that's like day-to-day life. But me, Anita and Jean, who are the core sort of team, have just made a bit of a commitment, and it's come quite organically, but we've made a bit of a commitment to really lean into mind and really lead this organization and grow it and develop it with mind. And that is, in a way, I think I've always been like that. I think I've always done that, and maybe we all have, but it feels very fresh to be doing that. And it feels continuously like, therefore, there is freshness in what we're doing. So we're building, we've got a great relationship, all of us. And that's going deeper and deeper, but it's also really fresh. Like we quite often just will reset, not even consciously, but sort of unconsciously we'll just reset, and then we find out something else that we didn't know about each other, or we go deeper into the dynamic of how we work together or something. It's just really lovely. But it takes me back to, I think, what was probably when we met and we were both training to, be able to share this understanding with other people through One Thought. I think I had a lot of epiphanies that week, but they were very, they almost just put me in a new gear. They allowed me to access a new gear, basically, I think, and allowed me to kind of, I don't know if go faster is really what I want to say, but sort of go deeper or go with more ease in a way. one of the big epiphanies that I had, and I was sharing this last week with the co-production team that I'm working on, which I can say a bit more about in a minute. But we were just sharing like, oh, what's fresh this week? What have you seen this week? And I shared this, and it was like, this is something that happened to me. Well, whenever we met, when did you say it was? 2017.
2017.
And it was that I'd always thought that I used to wing it all the time. So I would basically, I'm quite good at coming up with new ideas or reconceiving a situation, or I don't know, I'm quite good at being just off the cuff and not really knowing what I'm going to do in a certain situation, but coming up with an idea. I've sort of always, and I've always just called it winging it. And all my friends will go, well, you'll just wing it or whatever. But I was almost quite derogatory about it. I was almost like, oh, um, I guess I'll just have to wing it because I haven't done the prep, or I haven't done this, or I haven't done that. So I almost saw it as, well, thank goodness I can cope, but this is not a great way to, go into a sort of, meeting a new client or something like that. And I remember, but I did intuitively rely on it. So I would, and this is the bit I was sharing last week, and Derek Mason was one of the people I was sharing with, and he was really laughing. I know what you mean. That's what I've always been like. But I would quite often think, oh, I really want to connect with that person. It was either someone I knew or reaching out to a new person. And I would literally go, I had a bit of an idea for you, or had an idea about what we could do next, or I had an idea about something that was of benefit to them. And I hadn't had one, but I was felt drawn to connect with them. And then we would quite often set up a call or something. And I knew by the time that meeting came around, I would have had an idea, and it would be the right, and how weird that I just used to rely on that as a mechanism. And then when we were on One Thought, and it was quite late into it, I remember going, oh my gosh, so it's real. This thing is real. Oh my gosh. There I was, just like totally thinking I was winging it in life. And it was real. And that's why I could rely on it. And I've basically been there. I've been there again. I've been really, and it never really went away, but I feel like I'm leaning into that. Maybe it's the collegiate. I feel like I'm doing that as a team, and it therefore feels like quite a very trustworthy place to be. So yeah, I'd sort of say it's like the freshness is coming from my trust in the system. And I'm working since the beginning of January. I've been working on a new project that's actually kind of come from outside this like research organization. But it's a really interesting project it's funded by UCL, University College London. And they are really interested to know what is the value of co-production. And co-production, it turns out, is just collaborating, which kind of makes sense. But I was very drawn to this because as a team of people researching the impact of the principles, researching like the mechanism of the principles, researching like, how does it work? Why does it work? What does it do? We collaborate. So we've always described ourselves as doing collaborative research, and we collaborate with people who are not into the principles, so academics who don't know about the principles, but they are specialists in a population, or they're specialists in a field, or they're whatever. They can come with all sorts of things. But we also collaborate with the practitioners themselves, and they often come with their own lived experience, and so they bring that expertise, and then a host of other people in between. But we basically always try to give equal voice to all those people in the research, and in the design of the research. And this project, this co-production project, it's not research specific, but building evidence is a big part of it, and it's building evidence for the value of co-production. And I was immediately drawn to it because I was like, well, the principles is co-production. Like, it's, when you're doing anything in the principles, you're sort of honoring listening to the wisdom of the people in the room. You're honoring the fact that the participants or the people that are learning are the experts. The people who are facilitating, yes, they've got a grounding in the principles, but they also come with all their own lived experience, and they, and that's an expertise as well. And so I'm finding that I love collaborating, and I love the fact that we're actually really officially collaborating. We're really, the point is to collaborate. The point is to slow down and sort of do it a bit differently. So even though I'm a natural collaborator and I like doing it, we're really consciously doing it. So it's a real chance to sort of stop and go, gosh, would I normally have rushed on and done that bit on my own, or had a load of ideas and just run with them, or whatever? So that's really cool. But also, as a part of that, it's amazing because as a team, we are all leaning into mind and leaning into the principles. And so that's lovely. So I feel like I'm in several teams that are really honoring this, and it's a real privilege. It's a real privilege. Yeah.
That's cool. There's an interesting bit in there in terms of what is a team. People might have a vision of, oh, that's a formed body of set down to do stuff. Actually, it's two people or more that happen to be looking in the same direction at the same time. That's it. It doesn't have to be any more than that. And as a species, we're all about collaboration. That's how we've got to where we are today. It's the reason, it's the reason for our success as a species, is our ability to, share information and reimagine it. Listening to each other and reimagining it, throwing it back in the mix. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Getting spun up again, and you end up with something way potentially more useful than if we'd done it on our own. Not to say that we couldn't get there on our own. That collaborative process just tends to speed things up.
Yeah. I mean, suddenly I'm thinking of fungus, like mushrooms, and the whole ecosystem under the ground. And I'm just, what you were saying about us naturally being collaborators. I don't know. So I think what feels fresh to me is that trusting mind, leaning into mind, and really leaning into collaborating, and that, that special kind of listening that happens. But then, like you just alluded to, the advance that you make, the sort of the magnetism almost, that just the flow. So you're almost just, stuff happens so easily. And often, I mean, nearly every chunk of my career has been forging new paths, things that were not yet known about. So like, I started out in the creative economy, and it was actually all about building an evidence base for the fact that the creative economy was such an integral part of the UK's economy, but then countries around the world as well. And we were sort of sharing that expertise and building that research. Do you see what I mean? That was the first job I ever had, and it was grounded in research. But anyway, but it was, what goes often with forging, exploring and forging new exploring new terrain and sort of
Hmm.
path finding,
Hmm.
finding a new path through the field of psychology, for example. There's some bits that are unpopular, and if you're not careful, you can get into persuading and convincing, and it all feels like effortful.
Hmm.
And I think what I'm really experiencing right now is effortless, um, and research is not without its sort of complexity and
Hmm.
systems, and so it could feel very heavy, and it just doesn't. It feels really um, light and insightful and really lovely.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Again, there's loads in there, but there's this business of trusting things, following what feels right, and that tends to feel fun and playful. And when things, even if it is a tricky subject matter, or uh, potentially uh, an idea with conflict in terms of the parties in the room that are looking at something. Um, if people are coming to that despite the differences in there with a feeling of playfulness and fun, and let's see what we can find here, let's see what routes we can take through it, it tends to feel and have a sense of momentum that it doesn't have when we think, oh my goodness, this is heavy, we've got to put our
Thinking
thinking
caps on.
hats on, and really get stuck into this, because we know if we don't apply ourselves 100%, we're going to end up in a real pickle.
Yeah.
Noticing how that feels, realizing, oh crikey, I'm thinking myself out of playful creativity in this moment, is all we need to sort of resurface and go, okay, quick reset. Let's have another look at how we can take this forward, because that heaviness, that weighty, oh my goodness, this is hard work, is just a sign of the body to say that we're getting too involved in this. We aren't going to see things as clearly as we might. And that's the invitation to us, is to just let that go a little bit and see what can show up. I loved that business of, you felt like you were winging it the whole time. That's something that I've been mulling over for a couple of months now. And you and I have both got quite excited about drawing stuff recently and sharing ideas. And on my list of things to draw is the fact we're all winging it, and that that isn't a problem.
It's a good one to draw.
It's a really good one to draw. But there is a misconception that winging it is a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's not
Totally.
saying that you haven't done any preparation. It just means in the moment you are flying with what's fresh and new in the moment,
Yeah.
on top of all of your preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm quite proud of myself for believing in that a long time ago, because it was, I've also often in my life been quite analytical and got caught in that. So I think I unknowingly liked the feeling of the winging it. I trusted the feeling. It's really funny. I'm only thinking that now, that yeah, I would, I was kind of one of those people that would have to do a presentation or something. And I would like really sort of do a load of slides. And at the last minute, I'd have a whole load of new ideas. And then I'd add a load more slides, and then just look at it and go, well, you can't do this, can you? So then go in with nothing, like almost kind of drop it all.
But all of that stuff you'd done wasn't wasted. That's the thing about it. That helped formulate where your mind was at the moment you pressed play. And that's really cool. Just thinking back to that time before you knew what was going on, and you mentioned that you trusted the feeling of it. How would you describe that feeling?
Well, I think the trust element might have been relief, like, oh, yeah, that's a relief.
Yeah, that's fair.
And therefore light. Yeah, like there would have been, yeah, definitely some sort of lightness, freedom. isn't it funny winging it and with wings and
Mm.
free and yeah, I definitely think that. I think I remember that. I think I remember that kind of, oh well, might as well just jump off,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah. And,
jump off the edge and hope the parachute opens.
and but everybody will have experienced that and trusted it, but then thought themselves out of it potentially.
Yes,
And
yeah,
that's what's really exciting about looking in this direction. We're not trying to tell anybody anything that's not already in their experience.
I
It's
tell you
just
something.
providing some value for, oh, it's you're not breaking the rules here. This is
Yeah,
just very normal.
yeah. Sorry, I got
No, that's cool. Go for it.
overexcited.
No, that's all good. Overexcitement
I
is absolutely allowed.
I remember. I do now remember, and I have remembered this before, but I remember going. I've always loved the mountains, and I spent a year living in France in the mountains. And it was actually when I went back in the summer, and a friend, I was with a friend, and we went rock climbing with a guy we knew, and we were on the way up. We were going over boulders, and we were like clinging to the boulder. We were literally so close to the ground. We were kind of, and we were going up, and we had to climb up to where we were then going to do some rock climbing and abseil down. So it was only the three of us, and he just went, right, Nici, off you go, abseil down there. And I'd done it before. I'd done it when I was a kid. Um, and I just remember him saying, um, lean back, lean back. And I can't remember if he said don't lean forward, but I remember him saying lean back, and so off I went, like jumped off the edge of this cliff, mountain, whatever, and I didn't lean back. I leant forward, and so I turned upside down, and I was spinning, and he was just shouting, "Lean back, lean," really calmly, and I kind of thought, well, I've got nothing left. I now do need to lean back because otherwise I'm just going to spin upside down. And I leant back and my feet just landed on the side of the, rock. I keep saying
Mhm.
rock. I don't know what you call that. And I went upright and my feet were there and then I just like sort of went down and it was really amazing. And it was a bit like the experience, I think, of those moments where I would go, oh well, trust in whatever that was, like whatever I wing it, let's wing it then. We've got nothing else. Was a bit like that. It was a
Mhm.
bit like spinning upside down and then realizing, oh, I guess I could put my I guess I could lean back and put my feet on here. And then basically walk down,
Mhm.
aided by some ropes. So it definitely was the transition. This is another good one to draw, Dave. But the transition from sort of spinning to you're in the same situation. You like the surroundings haven't changed, but your feeling has,
Mm.
and your trust
Yeah.
has. So I'd definitely say it was something a bit like that.
No, that's cool.
But I guess I've always trusted in it's not just getting through it. It's not just like getting down that mountain, that cliff. And the point about the boulders was we stopped, we got to the bottom, and our confidence levels were sky high. And we were like running back down all those boulders with, leaping
Hmm.
because we just had such a different perspective.
Hmm.
But what I was going to say is, I don't think it's just about winging it and getting through it. I think it's creativity. It's like
Mm.
a totally accessing this pool of like ideas and that mushroom ecosystem of whatever that is. But they're all, if you don't get in the way, I feel like there is just this like real ecosystem that feeds you ideas, even when you don't know you need them and stuff, like real feeds you nutrients.
Mm.
And I think that's what I feel tapped into, hooked up to right now.
That's cool. Just going back to your boulder field and the two directions, that that it made absolute sense to be taking as much care as you did on the way up. And when your understanding shifted, your actions shifted. And that's a great metaphor for how we get on in life. At times, it feels like we're clinging on and we need to. And that's true for where our thinking is in that moment until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, we're off and flying. And yeah, it's until we next get caught up and we next need to go on all fours and crawl around the place. It's an amazing system and it's always got our back.
Yeah. And that kind of collaboration, creativity, all coming through that wisdom, that mushroom network that I need to read about this more. But what drew me, I mean, I was drawn to doing research. I don't know where, I don't really know where it came. I suppose there was a bit, it came from, I worked a lot with corporates who increasingly wanted evidence. They said they wanted evidence. I'm not convinced any of them actually did, but it was almost like a bit of a patter. Part of the procurement process was like, oh, can you show me the evidence? So I think there was I would say that's quite outside in, that I was hearing that a lot. I wanted to satisfy it. I wanted to be able to give people that. But I don't think that's what drew my heart to it. I think there was another kind of sort of calling. And I think it was almost the idea of, well, if I didn't think it through in the same way, but almost when you're working with somebody and showing them how the mind works and showing them this amazing system, there's a lot of telling stories. There's a lot of unlearning, like kind of stripping things back to its core essence, these core principles. There's a lot of chatting, there's a lot of listening, there's a lot of sharing or whatever. And actually, what I see is that's what research is. It's almost like, okay, let's ask people what they think. Let's hear their stories. I love doing the interviews. Let's really listen to their wisdom. And then let's almost like take these amazing stories. That's what inspired me, was like, there are so many amazing stories in the principles. Is there a way of kind of putting them together and telling a bigger story, and a story that we can help people that don't know about the principles understand the principles through something that they do understand?
Yep.
And I think that was, I don't think it was as well thought through, but I think that was the thing that made me phone Jean Catherine and go, hi. And I had I knew her well before that. I used to have amazing calls with her that I always loved. And I would just like go, hi, can you help me? I'm thinking of like adding, a little bit of, I want to kind of learn a little bit about this. In what's happening with my clients, can you help me with a research scale or something like that? So I kind of had a relationship with her, and I'd learned a lot from her. I think I'd really learned a lot about how the field of research works and stuff. So I guess there's lots of little pieces there that made me go, I think I'm just going to call her. And then she went, that's a great idea. Like, I had this idea basically, and she was like, that's a great idea. Would you come on? Would you also do this for us? And then, I was like, yeah, sure.
And that's come full circle back to winging it again. It's like, I've got an idea. Let's float it. Let's see what happens. Think of that. But it's so true. And it wasn't done in this would be a great outcome. It's just like, let's see what's down this path. Let's see what we can find. It might be nothing, but let's go and explore it anyway. The picture that popped to mind while you were talking about listening to stories and what research is about is a refinement process. It's boiling stuff down and seeing what the commonality is, to go, well, yeah, but you were talking about this group of people over there and that group of people over there, and you did different stuff. What's the commonality in there? And that's, that's in my mind, the benefit of all the work you're doing. It's drawing out those salient points that are running through everything that everybody's up to in a way that can't be seen without, giving it that research shuffle.
Yeah. And we're connecting what we're finding. We're finding really interesting things that absolutely every practitioner, facilitator, teacher, educator, whatever you call yourselves in the 3P community knows. We're finding, levels of well-being go up, a sense of purpose goes up, like your ability to solve problems, your good behavior, like pro-social behaviors or healthy behaviors, or all those things, all those sort of things go up, and levels of things like anxiety, depression, stress, behaviors around trauma, circumstances, stuff, they all go down. We're finding all the things, and coping mechanisms sort of go up, people's ability to cope and sort of problem solve go up. But we're connecting those findings into the gaps that we see in the system that, again, depending on, where a 3P person is focusing their effort. Some people are focused on mental health, some people are focused on, other things, basically. But we're seeing bigger things. Like we're seeing, well, there's an accessibility problem. There's, so even if the field of psychology kind of thinks that, CBT is the best way to go, well, not everyone can access that because it's quite over professionalized. And so there are barriers to entry. There are just barriers to getting into that. And the 3 principles offers a solution in a way to that, because it's people who come up through the communities that each individual population or community that's facing these mental health challenges, then the people in those rise up, the people that find the principles work then rise up and become leaders in those communities and stuff. And so you have an inbuilt kind of literally inside out, inside the community solution, which solves that accessibility gap. And then a lot of mental health solutions kind of overlook lived experience, which, when you look at the research, is really important. Like the participants that go through innate health programming talk about the importance of the fact that the person teaching them gave them hope, because they were like, oh my gosh, if they can do it, I can do it. They've got, they're coming from the same problems or circumstances as me. And then the idea that it's upstream. So it's shifting the research is, we are looking to address the gap of focusing on diagnoses in, for example, mental health, and instead shifting the focus to that sort of more upstream trans diagnostic sort of solution or whatever, which is just I mean, I find that so exciting because of the efficiency.
Yeah. It's almost like, I'm trying to think of the right word. It's going to be completely the wrong word, but I'm going to go with it anyway. The sort of re-democratization of our ability to look after each other.
Absolutely.
We've been, as a species, kicking around for thousands of years, and doing quite well with quite a lot of traumatic stuff going on in our lives through all of that. And it's absolutely not meant as a dig at the system. The system is doing the best it can with what it's got, and it's created some really wonderful things in the process, but at the same time, almost taken away everybody's agency to look after each other. Because, you're not an expert at, or you might cause damage, or what, well, actually, we can do the best we can in any given moment, and just showing up with a bit of love and compassion and listening can be a really, really good start to help someone take a step back, literally from the brink. And, the number of stories we hear of people that have come across individuals that have been standing on the edge of a bridge, and had no formal training, but just saw another human being in need and was able to help that individual climb back over the railings
Yeah.
and give them hope, or allow them to see the hope that lives within them already. That's what this is all about. It's about opening that up and letting people see that they've got everything that they need.
Yeah. And
Um,
that, I mean, that is so powerful. And in a way, it speaks to the winging it, doesn't it? Because you don't need to have been overtrained or to be human and to respond in a human way to someone else. And I might just compare two sort of things that have happened to me recently that I think describe that. One is in this co-production project, it's a beautiful team of people that some I knew, some I didn't know, and it's so, so lovely. But there is a strong element through it of so basically we're looking to develop a little bit of 3P, a little bit of a 3P program, and we think it's going to be to a women's refuge or to the school services that sit around that. And led in many ways led by a lovely woman called Siobhan, who's got some lived experience in that respect. And that's lovely, but there is this quite strong element of we've got to build some evidence for the value of co-production. And then we had this little moment where we were all doing a little bit of training with UCL around it. And I did feel I was starting to get a bit overthinky about, oh my gosh, I think I should already know what we need to do here. But also I know that they all don't want it to be heavy, however we evaluate. So I need to do it in a way that's not heavy. And I was just feeling, just quite heady about it all. And I remember going, oh my goodness, this is the whole point. This is co-production. Like every single person on this team, which is Derek and Lily and Susan and Lou and another lovely lady who I didn't know called Kate and Siobhan. Everyone's contributing to this. I don't need to know. I don't need the solution right now. And in fact, before I even try and I'm someone who I'll quite often start thinking a bit of a framework in my head about, we could have these categories. And I was like, I just want to know what they will think before we even start. And it was amazing. It was like kind of leaning back into this like trust bubble. I just didn't have to do it. It was a bit like leaning back on the on the edge of the mountain. Didn't think of that. But it's really lovely. And so that's it in a really lovely kind of work capacity, which could have been like me sitting with a client who is has been through really traumatic, things in their past and which I've done. And you sit there thinking, there's a moment where you're going, really, am I capable of sort of saying that I think they're okay? I mean, I remember one guy I worked with, and he'd been through he'd grown up in Nigeria and been in Nigerian boarding schools, and then come over and lived in Tottenham in London and been in gangs. And I only was doing 4 sessions with him, when you're like, really, am I gonna? And this was just like a little call, like an introduction call, because we'd met on a panel he was a musician, and we'd met on a panel, and he just felt called to get in touch with me. And so we had a chat. And I looked at him and he said, I want to feel light like I did as a child. And I want to feel hope. And I just sort of looked, and I couldn't get his eye because we were on Zoom, but he wouldn't like look at me. He wouldn't look. And he said to me, I can't look at people in the eye. And I said, but I believe you can. I believe you can feel light. I believe you can find that hope. And it was a real, in the moment where you just go, I mean, I did know it was possible, but there are moments where you go, I don't know, I've never like worked with someone with exactly that background before. Maybe it's not true. And in 4 sessions, he did have that. And we stay in touch, and we every so often we have a chat, and he's always built on it. And it's really lovely. And he was accessing the mainstream mental health system at the same time for the complex PTSD that he was. But quite often we chat about it was the understanding of the principles that allowed him to make sense of the other things that he was doing. So he was doing EMDR. I can't remember how much, but he had a double set. He had an NHS set of sessions and a privately funded set of sessions, funded by a music sort of foundation. So he had a double whammy of EMDR sessions, and he said to me, "Do you know what? They only ever asked me about traumatic things from my childhood. They never asked me about that time I had an ice cream." And what? So he understood it and stuff, and then it links to the personal stuff that you and me have talked about a lot. That's been happening in my life over the past sort of 7 months, which is linked to 2 tragic deaths in my school, and really what the sort of little that I want to say is just that is how much I'm amazed at the 2 families who've lost children, how I really believe they are kind of in their own way leaning into mind and leaning into this human system. And in a way, I think their lives have been so stripped back. I think they have to. They've got nothing else except that scaffolding. And it's love. It's I thought we might never see them again. I thought it would be too painful for those 2 families to stay friends with all of us who, so fortunately didn't lose our children on that day. And they haven't done that. They've amazed me. They've leaned into our friendship. They've leaned into the love that we've all got for them. And we all talk like that now. We all talk about love, and we laugh, and I think the winging it in this experience is I don't have a clue. I don't have any experience of doing this, as of being a friend to this experience, to people in this experience. And I remember thinking at one point, all I've got is sort of my trust in this system. And in a way, because I trust in that system, I trust them. I trust that these friends are going to somehow pull themselves through it. And with us, with all of us there. And it's really quite beautiful. Like every so often with one of those friends, we'll almost touch on the fact that if you can remove yourself from the pain, it's fascinating. It's how on earth we get through trauma, how on earth it happens is almost like in the moment, it's too overwhelming. No, it's too overwhelming to know you're going to be okay because many before you were. It can feel like too big a leap from the pain of now to the sort of okayness of there. But somehow, minute by minute, that's what happens. And I think that's my learning. It's just that's my reflection or my observation or whatever it is. It's the same as how I trust this system in really joyful, creative ways. I sort of trust it in a deeply kind of loving way. But it goes back to that, you don't need to be a professional with reams of sort of mental health training or whatever to know, like to just sit with another human being who's suffering in some way and be okay and sort of know and trust that it's okay, no matter if you can think of something to say it. If you can't think of something to say, don't, just sit in the silence or whatever. So yeah, I find that really beautiful. I find it very practical in my life right now,
Mm.
but it's very beautiful and it's very helpful.
Thank you for sharing that, Nici, because I know, I know it's been tricky for all of you involved in that situation. But I think the hope in it is that business of love. Love allows us to be honest with ourselves in the moment, be honest with the people that we are with in the moment, whether we know them or not.
Yeah.
Trusting in that love and honesty allows us to be curious about what we are feeling in ourselves, what feels like the right thing to do, rather than what does everybody expect me to do.
Yeah.
And with that honesty and that curiosity and that love, playfulness is never really far away, and our ability to laugh and have fun and think of happy memories in the midst of really, really painful, upsetting circumstances is always there.
Yeah.
And we might tell ourselves that that's wrong or inappropriate. But based on what? If it feels like the right thing, if it feels logical and heartfelt and honest, then it's going to be received that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where our innate ability to heal comes from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like what you said, the business of love. It's quite cool, isn't it?
It's we talk ourselves out of using it as a word because it's got so many connotations that we wrap around different scenarios where it exists. We possibly couldn't possibly talk about that in a work setting, or that would be completely inappropriate because of whatever. Actually, what we're talking about, love is just connection. That's it.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
It's smiling at someone and seeing them and their face light up and smiling back and saying hello. That's love.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like that. And it's what is it, the right expression? It's like a workhorse. I just keep thinking of that in the terms of a wardrobe, like, that's a good item. It's a real workhorse item. But it is, isn't it? Love, like, so that's why I quite like that business of love, because it's like, yeah, if you can embrace that, I can fix a
huge amount.
of
And not even fix it. It's just like, okay, do we know where to start? No. Okay, cool. Let's be honest about that. Let's see what we can create from this point. Knowing that we haven't got a clue. Great, that's a good start. Without clues, we can find one.
Yeah. Oh, it's very good.
Nici, thank you so much. That's been really, really cool. It's lovely to catch up as ever.
Always.
I'll obviously share a link to Innate Health Research for those that are interested. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, you too, for some drawings.
Exactly.
Thank you, Dave. Talk to you soon.
Nici. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed the conversation, feel free to subscribe and join me and my new guest next time. If you're interested in the work I'm doing, or you think I can be of service to you or your organisation, please email dave@simplicityofmind.co.uk. Remember, see if you can find time to slow down and reflect. Those simple ideas might be worth listening to. Take care, and I hope you can join me in a couple of weeks.